Honkai Star Rail is a space fantasy RPG game that uses a turn-based system as its combat. But ever since the beginning, this system has been flawed, and it mostly boils down to this one deeply rooted characteristic of the game: the gacha monetization. In today's video, I will be answering the question of can it be fixed, how gacha influences the game's combat system, and what can be added to improve the game. Hi, my name is Spade, and I'll be at your service today. So, can we fix it? First, we need to understand how it influences the game's combat system, or any other gacha game for that matter. Gacha games, by nature, are built on percentages that are not favorable for its players. Otherwise luck. So, the way that this affects combat, aside from the characters of course, is through its gearing system. But why does this affect HSR more than other gacha games? Because the game's combat is simple and lacks options within your control. There are only 3 things you have control over in combat: your basic attack, skill, and ultimate. You cannot dodge, you cannot block, and even if you could, it would probably be an additional stat that we would have to worry about. Because every single stat a character has can and is manipulated through relics. And when this gearing system is influenced by RNG, that's where we have a problem. Especially if it heavily dictates how much you can do in a battle against the clock. My point being, a turn-based game is about preparation and planning your move based on what the opponent does. If all of that is influenced by RNG, along with the limited options we have, what can we really do? To be honest, roll better. I'm just kidding. So, with its combat design around gacha, can we really fix it? No. It is the foundation that this game is built upon. But there are ways we could make it better by introducing new mechanics and permanent content that can balance some of the game's issues. While these ideas aren't perfect, far from perfect actually, it would at the very least add more depth and strategy to the game. One mechanic that can be added to the game is a front and back row system similar to how Metaphor ReFantazio does it, and probably some other games that I'm not aware of. This system allows the player to manually switch a character's positioning during their turn before they act. From what I've thought of at least, there are 2 ways that this can be implemented. The first being a more simplified system. Characters in the front deal more damage, while characters in the back deal less damage but also receive less damage. I'm not too sure on the percentages, but not enough of an increase to make a big difference, but at least noticeable enough to incentivize positioning. Essentially, you'd want your DPS in front while your supports and sustainers are at the back. The second system is a bit more complex. A character's basic attack and skill will be classified as either a short-ranged or long-range attack. A visual indicator beside their icons will be shown to, let players know which attack falls under what during combat. Ultimates and follow-ups will be exempt from this as they are special and can be triggered outside of their turn. Characters in the front will deal increased damage to their short-range attacks and less damage to their long-range attacks, while those at the back deal vice versa and receive less damage. But in exchange, they will receive a speed reduction of 2 till their next turn. Now it might not seem a lot, but with these speed thresholds, it is enough to reduce their turns in a cycle. Since a character can have both types of attacks, this incentivizes players to actively switch their positioning during battle. Ultimately, these are decisions a player has to make. Do you want to gain the benefits of being in front, or the safety of being at the back at the cost of potentially losing a turn? Especially if the boss is at low HP but has an insanely strong attack coming up. Decisions. Again, this idea is not perfect. A problem I can see here is that speed would have an even bigger importance. So I would like to hear what you guys think and what your suggestions are to make this system more balanced. This can be an event mechanic first, just like how the grid system was for Pure Fiction. If the feedback is well received, then they can implement this in the following update. But if a player does not like this, or prefers auto battle, which I'm sure a lot of us do, then this will be an option that they can toggle. Just like how Zenless Zone 0 and Withering Waves allows players to toggle parry indicators on or off. They just won't get the benefits. Now before we move on with the video, this is a reminder that you probably aren't subscribed. I would really appreciate it if you like this video and subscribe to my channel. I also recently opened up memberships, so become a member today! You will have benefits such as influence on my thumbnails, early access to my videos, character reviews, and more. Any kind of support is much appreciated. Join my Discord server as well, links are in the description below. Alright, break's over, back to the video. A problem Honkai Star has is that their permanent content or endgame uses artificial difficulty through HP inflation and a timer. Now, a timer isn't all that bad. In HSR's case, it is a cycle count that you can visually see and be aware of. In some cases, from the limited turn-based games that I've played, you won't be aware of it. After several turns, the boss will just one-shot your entire party. It forces players to make something work within that time limit. However, as I stated earlier, when several factors are influenced by RNG outside and inside a battle, that's a problem. Then you add in HP inflation on top of that, and it just becomes a mess that many players don't want to deal with. So, what if we add a tower mode as the new permanent content? Just like how ZZZ implemented it, an unlimited amount of floors with more difficult enemies as you progress. Of course, enemies will have more HP as their levels increase. I know, we've all had our trauma with HP inflation, so until you reach a certain floor, enemy levels will stop increasing, but they will gain new movesets or versions as you progress. But this time, there will be no cycle limit since the difficulty will constantly increase with the enemies. As long as you're able to defeat them, you can progress. And as you progress, you are able to add more characters to your roster for you to switch between. Let's say after every 5 floors, right? However, if your character gets downed, you will be unable to use them for the remainder of that span until you clear or unless you restart. Buffs similar to Divergent Universe will also be given. General buffs that will be given to the players and buffs that they can choose. One general buff I was thinking would be a team-wide Eidolon increase. This can only be given twice, thus limiting E0 characters to E2. However, characters already at E2 or higher will not receive this buff. This is to help balance strength and progression among players. This is important for a suggestion I will share later on. Players can earn rewards such as Stellar Jades, materials, and more. And since the game is introducing global passives, using Pokey's idea, a global passive can be obtained as the highest reward in the tower. This is to ensure that everyone can obtain them through different means other than a limited character. And to add on to that idea, why not make it a badge or title that you can display on your account information? Reward progression will stop afterwards, but you can still progress higher into the tower. After all, like I said, it is infinite. Now, what I'm about to suggest can be tricky and could lead to more complications. What if this tower mode is HSR's PvP? The reason why PvP in gacha games is so difficult to implement is because players can pay to win, which is why I suggested the Eidolon buff and its limitations. Standings for each region will rank each player based on how far they got and how many cycles it took to clear it. To take it a step further, players will have their teams displayed along with their Eidolons. This takes account of the buffs, so players will have a minimum of E2 displayed. This cannot be hidden for transparency. Players will not know the level of investment of your account unless you have multiple limited characters past E2. And since the rewards will stop at a certain point, standings will be nothing more than bragging rights. The tower will be a permanent game mode that will not refresh. But just like in ZZZ, new towers can be added in the future for new content and more rewards. This can help minimize the feeling of FOMO among players, as this game mode will always be there. Again, this is not perfect, and I would like to know your thoughts and suggestions on how to improve on it. Another permanent content that can be added is a shadow mode. Yes, I know, we do have an endgame for bosses called Apocalyptic Shadow. But again, it has artificial difficulty. What I'm suggesting is something similar to Wuthering Waves' tactical holograms. These would be found in the overworld at the same location as their respective weekly boss. I would call this the Mandela Effect mode. Since HSR's story and lore is built around memories, I think this fits perfectly. Bosses will not only have new movesets as you progress each difficulty, say 4 levels, but they will not have any weaknesses on their toughness meter. This will lift the restrictions on what teams you can use against them. And since the bosses are not limited to elements, you can prepare a team around their movesets, meaning each difficulty could push you to try out different team compositions to see what works. Food buffs are also allowed as you're in the overworld. I can see cycle counts being acceptable in this game mode as long as it provides a reasonable amount of time. Let's say 20 or 24 cycles. As long as you clear it within those cycles, you will get the rewards for that difficulty. The rewards will only be given on your first clear, but since this game mode is less restrictive, I am confident that players will continue playing the game mode to experiment with different teams, despite already claiming the rewards. Next, one of my friends suggested a game mode catered for a specific path. So I thought about it and got inspired by Pokemon. What if we had gyms, quote unquote, that only allowed you to use a team that follows one path? Since each planet follows 1 or 2 paths, their gyms will also follow that path. For example, Belobog would have a preservation gym, while the Xianzhou Luofu would have a hunt and abundance gym. Of course, mechanics will be present to allow harmony, abundance, and preservation characters to deal damage. Similar to Divergent Universe, but on a smaller scale. There will be trial characters available in case the player does not have enough characters to make a team. This game mode will provide each path a place to shine. As the game progressed, we started having character kits overlap into other paths, especially Remembrance, as it seems to be the jack of all trades. This now gives paths more value as they have a gym dedicated to them respectively. This game mode will most likely be permanent, but I'm sure some players would like to rematch against them. So I was thinking that the gyms and its rewards will refresh every X version. For example, gyms for the current planets will be introduced in 4.0. Then in 5.0, they will refresh with new enemies and of course a new gym for the new planet. This minimizes FOMO and provides players enough time to build and pursue characters for each path. As I said earlier, these ideas are not perfect, but it would at the very least add more depth and strategy to the game. Do these actually save HSR? Of course not, but it keeps it fun and engaging. And with the lack of events recently per version, this can keep players busy, other than just continuously farming for better relics that may never come. At the end of the day, I'm just a player that wants a game that they enjoy playing to improve. Even when aspects of the game haven't been the best lately. Even when it can get tiring at some points that you need to take a break. I still want to continue to enjoy playing this game. Thank you guys for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed the video. I had fun coming up with possible improvements to the game. Let me know if I'm cooking or burning down the kitchen with these ideas. I also really want to create Zenless Zone Zero and Withering Waves content, but I've been struggling to find topics that haven't been so saturated. If y'all have any suggestions, let me know in the comments. As always, I would really appreciate it if you like this video and subscribe to my channel. Alright, I'll see you guys next time.